Advancing Texas, or SEAT, a movement of young people developing transferable skills and demonstrating youth visibility in policymaking. I'm also a 10th grade student here in Austin. We are here today to stand firm against President Donald Trump's attacks on public education, including through the attempted dismantling of the United States Department of Education. SEAT has worked extensively with the department, including the Office for Civil Rights, OCR, on addressing civil rights violations in our own school districts. From combating book bans and challenging policies that attack LGBTQ+ students, to investigating districts putting less funds into predominantly minority schools compared to predominantly white schools, the department and OCR have played an important role in the fight for equal and equitable public education. Unlike what the Trump administration seems to be implying, the president does not have the unilateral power to abolish a cabinet department, and we must uphold the Constitution, even if some would rather see it fade away. Leaders like Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, who are in support of abolishing the department, suggest that maybe there should be a national league of extraordinary teachers who, instead of teaching 30 students at a time in a classroom, will actually be teaching 10 million kids at a time via the internet. But when asked who would run such a national program, he suggests it would be the states. So it seems that leaders seeking to abolish the department don't even have a clear plan for what their ideal educational system would look like. The Department of Education has played a crucial role in overseeing civil rights protections in educational institutions, collecting data on school performance and graduation rates, ensuring students with disabilities receive a free and appropriate public education through the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and Section 504, and overseeing Title I funds and Pell Grants for over 6 million American students to attend college. Transferring these programs over to other federal and state departments would weaken their strength and potentially lead to efforts to dismantle them altogether. Dismantling the department will lead to major consequences on the success of marginalized students. Without a federal department, there will be no federal oversight of institutions to guarantee the basic and fundamental rights of students. There will be no federal assistance for institutions to implement federally mandated programs, putting more of a burden on schools that already have their plates full. We must keep fighting and showing lawmakers at all levels of government that education, being the great equalizer, will not be torn down to benefit the rich and powerful. I'm now going to turn it over to a strong fighter in the United States Congress, representing the 35th Congressional District of Texas, serving as a member of the House Education and Workforce Committee and the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Please welcome Congressman Greg Casar. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Ayan, and to SEAT for your advocacy work. I think young people are really stepping up and leading in this moment. Good morning, I'm Congressman Greg Casar. I'm proud to represent the heart of Texas in the United States Congress. I'm also the vice-ranking member on the Education and Labor Committee in the U.S. House. I want to start today by being crystal clear about what is going on. Donald Trump and Elon Musk are stealing from America's children in order to pay for tax cuts for billionaires. That is theft. Elon Musk and Trump want to dismantle and destroy the Department of Education and then take that money and give it out to themselves and to billionaires in the form of government contracts and tax breaks. So to say it again, what's going on here is all about the richest people on earth firing public school teachers and closing public schools, taking those salaries and taking that money, which is your taxpayer money, for themselves. Trump and Musk talk about efficiency, but there is nothing efficient about making our public schools poorer. There is nothing efficient about failing to give a great education to the next generation. Trump and Musk have made their goals very clear. The Department of Education oversees over $500 million for career and technical training, $3.6 billion for Texas schools, more than $130 billion for our 2-year colleges, 4-year colleges, and trade schools. So Trump and Musk see this money that is supposed to be for our kids, and they see it as a bucket of money for themselves. When they see workers, people that work every day for a living, they think those folks need to work more hours in order to make people like Trump and Musk richer. When they see the taxpayer money that you pay every year, they don't think that that's to improve everybody's lives. They think that's money that they can claim for themselves. Here's a way that I think folks can think about this very simply. Elon Musk makes $8 million a day in federal government contracts, while your average public school teacher makes about $120 a day. So if we were really looking at efficiency, we should look at the bloat that is big corporations milking the taxpayers, the way that big pharma takes billions of extra dollars from the government every single year and jacks up your prices for prescription drugs, the way that big tech steals from consumers and taxpayers every single day. But they're not looking at cutting the $8 million that the ultra rich get every single day, like Elon Musk from the government. They're calling public school students and public school teachers moochers. The people that receive Social Security, the people that attend public schools, our seniors, our veterans, they're not moochers, they're Americans. And we should actually start out by thinking, instead of firing a public school teacher, maybe we should fire Elon Musk. Yeah. The bottom line is clear. Trump and Musk are stealing billions of dollars that pay for Texas schools to educate our children, and they want to give that out to billionaires. That is in the budget that they just passed last week. It's in the reconciliation bill that they want to move through the United States Senate next week. This is not a conspiracy. I was just on Fox News yesterday, and right before me was the US Senator from North Dakota, and he said his goal was to extend the billionaire tax cuts from Trump's last term. That is what he wants to do next week, and they want to pay for it. And the way they want to pay for it is by shutting down public schools, by taking away Pell Grants, by firing public school teachers, by making our education in this state worse so that they can go buy their 10th yacht and their 15th jet and their 20th mansion. That is not right. And Democrats, Republicans, independents, all alike, all just cannot understand why this is until you recognize that it's because these billionaires pay for these Republican office holders' campaigns. That's what it comes down to. So in Washington, I will do everything in my power to fight. You may have seen that I and my colleagues were locked out of the public building that the Department of Education is in the other day. They did not want to answer our questions, but we're not going to give up. We're going to keep fighting alongside my colleagues here in the State House here in Texas against the closure of the Department of Education and against these voucher scams, which are just another way of taking your taxpayer money, taking kids' money, and making these billionaires richer. The voucher scam here in the Texas House is just like the one that they're talking about in the US Capitol right now. They want to take public school students' money and your taxpayer money, close down your neighborhood school, and then hand it out in contracts to private companies who just so happen to fund Republican member of Congress's campaigns, who just so happen to fund the campaigns of Republican members of this state house. So look, no matter where you might stand on this social issue or that one, you may disagree with me on some number of issues. If you're watching at home, you should know that Democrats in the state house and in Congress right now are fighting to make sure your taxpayer money goes to what you're paying it for. It goes to public school students, goes to public school teachers, goes to career and technical education. And what Republican members of Congress and Republican members of the state house want to do is take that money and give it to their donors instead. Thank you all very much for your time. And I believe that if we engage in this fight together and bring people along with us, including those who may disagree with us, that we can stop these attacks on our public schools and have a great education for every single student in the state. Thank you, Ayan.
Thank you, Congressman Kassar. We are so grateful to have you as a strong advocate for Texas in Congress. Next, I would like to turn it over to State Representative Jean Wu, who represents House District 137 and is the chair of the House Democratic Caucus. Also, it was his birthday yesterday, so very happy belated birthday. But please welcome Representative Wu.
Thank you so much. My name is Jean Wu, State Rep from House District 137 in Southwest Houston. I'm also the current House Democratic Caucus chair. I think we would need to be very clear about the analogy that we're using. A lot of times people keep saying that our education system is near the cliff. It is not near the cliff. Our education system has already gone over the cliff. It is hanging on by its very fingernails and they are slipping, right? The education system in Texas is about to wholesale collapse if we do not act and act now. We Democrats have been screaming this message at the top of our lungs for almost a year now. And only now has the public begun to listen and take heed of what is coming. And right now, while Governor Abbott should be in Austin working on the absolute highest priority in the state, which is keeping our public education system afloat, he is in Washington, D.C., hamming it up with the president. Instead of working on public education, the pathway for all of us to reach the middle class, what keeps America strong, what keeps Texas strong, instead, he is laughing and giggling while the president signs the execution warrant for our school system. The hole that the loss of the DOE will blow in our budget is $14 billion. Combined with what we have spent so far, that is more than we have left in our surplus. It is simply untenable. And our school districts, if you have not heard, are just barely hanging on right now. Aldine ISD, near my district, is set to close 6 schools. This is a small school district. Alief ISD, in my district, is set to close 4 to 6. These are not large school districts. HISD, God help us all. This is a loss for not only Texas, but this could be the end for many Texas families who already barely struggle to survive. You have to drive an extra half an hour out to go take your kids to school, to pick them up. You may not be able to make it because you would have to take more time off of work. And you're already shortchanged. You're already barely making it from month to month. And this is going to get worse. But what I want the public to know is who is responsible for this. It is not the teachers who are paying for school supplies out of their own pockets. It is not them. It is not the school support staff who are being forced to drive the bus instead of serving lunch, who's being forced to watch kids instead of just cleaning the hallways. The teachers who, instead of teaching 20 kids, are now teaching 30 kids, or 35 kids, or 39 kids. It is not them. And it's sure as hell not our students who are doing their absolute best, struggling through the STAR test and everything else that we force upon them, taking their best teachers away. It is not them either. The people responsible for pushing our school system over the cliff is Governor Greg Abbott and President Donald Trump. If you don't want your schools in your neighborhood, your local school down the street to collapse, do something about it. Make phone calls, show up, have a protest, do something. We have to act now before it's too late. Our children deserve better.
Thank you, Representative Wu. Next, I will turn it over to Representative Gina Hinojosa, representing House District 49 and serving on the House Public Education Committee. She is a former Austin ISD School Board member. Please welcome Representative Hinojosa.
Thank you. I'm State Representative Gina Hinojosa. I represent Central Austin in the Texas House. I also sit on the Public Education Committee in the House. And I want to just say how amazing it is that this was convened. This press conference was convened by a student. It goes to show that it's the acts of everyday people of all ages that are really going to be the power that takes back this country and fights for working people, and I'm honored to be a part of it, so thank you. I think that our congressman did an excellent job of painting the big picture of what is happening with this attack on the Department of Education. I would like to bring it to a more local level to talk about how this might impact everyday families in Texas. Let me begin by saying that the state of Texas has zero credibility when it comes to our students who need a special education. Let's remember just a few years ago when I was on the school board in Austin, the state put forward an illegal cap on the number of special education students that could receive a special education, 1.5% cap. It took the Department of Education under Betsy DeVos, of all people, to tell Texas, you're wrong, this is illegal, and you're hurting children. We perhaps lost a generation of brilliant children who just learn a different way because of this illegal cap that Texas put on our students. My own son waited for over a year to be evaluated for special education despite a request from me and his teacher and his principal, because our system had been blown up by a state that chose to save money and cut costs on the back of our most vulnerable students, our students in special education. And it's taken us about a decade to still recover from that. In fact, our school district, Austin ISD, has faced almost the threat of takeover from the state because it is struggling to work its way back to meeting the needs of these most vulnerable children. It is entirely inconvenient to educate students who need a special education because it's expensive. And the profiteers don't make a lot of money off giving them the education they need. And so we repeatedly see the establishment Republicans in this state try to save money on the backs of these children. Another example, Attorney General Ken Paxton joined with over a dozen attorney generals across this country to end the protections of 504 for Texas families. Again, a protection that my own son has the benefit of having a right to currently, and that's to give accommodations to students in the classroom so that they can do their best. This is under attack by Ken Paxton, who was in DC with Governor Abbott and Dan Patrick, giddy over this attack on basic rights of our students. So let's remember what this attack on the Department of Education means for everyday students. We are not against efficiency in government. We all want efficiency in government, but they are playing with fire when they go after the very protections that protect our most vulnerable students. I filed 2 bills in anticipation of this happening because we know that this was addressed in Project 2025, right? So we saw this coming. House Bill 5419 and House Bill 5288 require the state of Texas to take any federal block grants that we get from DC and send that money directly to our schools so that it's not stopping at the Texas Education Agency that has grown the amount of vendor contracts that it enters into in the name of education, right? That has grown its bureaucracy. So we're for efficiency, but we need those dollars to go to the classroom and to the students who deserve them. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hinojosa. Next, I will turn it over to Representative Vicki Goodwin, representing House District 47 and a staunch advocate for public education in the legislature. Representative Goodwin.
Thank you. I am State Representative Vicki Goodwin, representing House District 47. Our message today here is really very simple. It is fund our schools, don't fund vouchers. You know, what we see happening at the federal level with the dismantling of the Department of Education will have severe consequences here in Texas. And this session, as I am serving on the Appropriations Committee, it has become very apparent to me what is happening and the consequences of it. So just as an example, $400 million taken away from our public universities because our state leadership believes there is too much DEI, and this is coming from the federal level as well. Too much diversity, equity, and inclusion, and when we dug into what exactly do you mean? Well, health research institutions are worried about health equity. Yes, because we need to make sure people, low-income people in particular, have access to health care. Now, what we're coming to understand now with the federal government cutting back on grants, this impacts our research. Think about cancer research. So many devastating impacts from what is happening right now, and so many communities coming forward. I appreciate the students pulling this together and allowing us to share some of the negative consequences and really say to our communities that your speaking up, showing up, and amplifying our message is critical these days. We have to push back against the administration both at the federal level and here at the state level. We have billions of dollars of surplus, and yet we are not funding our schools the way we need to. In our committee hearings, the Commissioner of Education here in Texas admitted that we are underfunding special education by $1.7 billion. Are we going to fill that gap? We have billions of dollars that we could put towards education to increase and bring up what we're sending our schools to match inflation. Since 2019, we've had 24% inflation. We need to fill that gap. Right now, schools are doing what they can, as you've already heard, eliminating teaching positions, making classroom sizes larger, and some school districts even going to 4-day class weeks. And asking the Commissioner of Education here in Texas if that is good for our schools, he said absolutely not. So we need to fund our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Goodwin. Our next speaker is a certified teacher and now Round Rock ISD School Board Trustee, Melissa Ross.
Good morning. My name is Melissa Ross. I'm a trustee for Round Rock ISD and a fifth-generation educator and a proud public school mom. Let me say these plainly: shifting control of our students' civil rights away from the federal government and into the hands of the state of Texas is dangerous. This state has a long and well-documented history of cutting corners and in many cases breaking the law, especially when it comes to our most vulnerable students. This executive order isn't about bureaucracy or parent empowerment. This is about oversight. The U.S. Department of Education isn't some distant agency. It exists to enforce the laws we've already fought for and won. Laws that protect students with disabilities under IDEA and uphold civil rights through the Office of Civil Rights. In 2022 alone, the office resolved over 9,000 civil rights complaints, including many right here in Texas. Without federal oversight, who's left to enforce them? Because let's be honest, Texas cannot be trusted to protect our students on its own. This is the same state that illegally capped special education enrollment at 8.5% for over a decade, denying thousands of students needed services. It still funds special education from a formula from 1991, shortchanging students by $1.7 billion. It held $2.2 billion in school funding hostage because our governor's voucher priorities didn't align with Texas values. Address the teacher shortage without better pay or decreased workload by placing undercertified teachers in classrooms without the training and support that they need. It routinely refuses a $400 million per year in federal summer food aid for hungry kids. And now they want more power with zero accountability. Meanwhile, schools face rising costs and unfunded mandates, and yet public school funding has remained flat while they hoard a record-breaking surplus. Here in Round Rock ISD, we have one of the few districts that passed a balanced budget, but we got there by making painful choices that affect real people. Nearly 90% of our budget goes directly to people, the teachers, the staff, and the support teams that show up every day for our kids. Even Representative Buckley admitted that his business costs are 22% more to operate today than it did in 2019. If that is true for private enterprise, then it is certainly true for public education. Round Rock ISD administrative costs are among the lowest in the state. So when politicians claim that there's still bloat to cut, that is not a reality, it is political theater. Now they're moving to dismantle the Department of Education to try to squeeze that dry sponge even more, with no plan to preserve its most vital functions. For Round Rock ISD, our projected federal support is $25 million. That includes $9 million for student meals, over $6.5 million in title funding for low-income students, English language learners, and those facing homelessness, nearly $10 million in IDEA funding for students with disabilities, and $400,000 in Perkins grants for CTE programs that prepare our students for college and career. This isn't just about dollars. It is about who ensures those dollars are used the way that the law requires, and who families can turn to when they are not. This is not about partisanship. It is about families, educators, and communities coming together with one shared belief. Every child deserves dignity, opportunity, and protection. Federal oversight exists for a reason, and Texas has shown us again and again that without it, too many kids are left behind. I would like to ask you to stand with your schools, stand for public education, and contact your representatives and your school boards to tell them what the people really want. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Ross. I will now turn it over to a former science teacher and now the president of the Texas American Federation of Teachers, Zeph Capo.
And thank you. And we're honored to be here today with SEAT. We love all of our partner organizations, but there is no constituency who has more in common with the educators in our state than the people who sit in the classrooms with them, and that's our students. And this wrecking ball of a decision will directly impact families and livelihoods. In particular, for us, the livelihoods of teachers, paraprofessionals, counselors, and other support personnel that are paid for by the $3.6 billion that come to the state of Texas. And we've heard the administration say, well, the money will still continue to go, but there's no actual plan for that. We've not been able to see it. It's not in writing. It's not been decided anywhere. And we have plenty of experience to know what happens with block grants. Without legislation such as that brought forward by Representative Hinojosa, we know that that money will not continue the way it does now, directly to school districts, directly to classrooms. It will get siphoned off for the bureaucracy that is just a few doors down. And what a great way to double down on the worst educator retention rates in the history of the state of Texas is to add another level of deep uncertainty to the people that are employed by these dollars, and that we'll be looking right now, whether they stay in education, whether they stay in this state, or whether they go elsewhere with their experience and their practicality. I want to echo what my colleagues today have said about states and school districts having control. We know good and darn well the federal government has never dictated curriculum. All decisions are made locally. But the issue is Texas could be the poster child for what's wrong with that issue without having controls. When the president talks about regulations like it's a four-letter word, those rules are what allow my colleagues, leaders in our organizations across this state, to actually have a fighting chance when they go to advocate because their principal or their school district has pulled the paraprofessional that should be there helping the student who can't feed themselves, when they've been pulled to go do bus duty, when they've been pulled into the lunchroom, when they've been pulled to go make copies for the front office. That is exactly what will happen when there are no regulations, because it happens today with the regulations. They're only as good as the enforcement. And that's already part of what the state of Texas does, is keep funding so low that no one other than our organizations are generally out there and able to enforce these issues. And it will be those kids who these funds are intended for that get hurt the most. You know, this is not a game, but this administration has consistently shown that they will treat us and our students like pawns on a game board. Seniors and disabled Americans waiting on their Social Security checks are not fraudsters. American families who rely on Medicaid for vital health care are not leeches on the system. And public servants whose positions in our schools and in federal oversight roles are not a waste. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Capo. Our final speaker is Eliza Hebert, a senior at Westwood High School and an advocate for her peers. Please welcome Eliza.
As Ion said, my name is Eliza Hebert. I'm a senior at Westwood High School, and today I was asked to prepare remarks on how the dissolving of the Department of Education affects me as a public school student. Now, I could immediately delve into all of the ways that this action will impact me and my academic career, how my research opportunities will slim, how the money that my family receives from FAFSA will likely wither, and how a Justice Department with little concern for the law could stifle my First Amendment rights as a student. All of which are very real threats, but truthfully, I will be fine. I am in an immense position of privilege as a student with a college fund, as a student from one of the top public school districts in the state, and as an American who has an abundance of time to seek truth independent of an academic institution. The majority of American children, however, will not be fine. 63% of American public and charter schools are eligible for Title I funds, serving nearly 25 million students. Contrary to the belief of this administration, Title I and Department of Education funds don't go to lining curriculum with critical race theory or whatever woke nonsense they claim our teachers are spreading. These funds go to toilet paper, to textbooks, to hand soap, to internet access for rural students, and to nourishing meals that millions of impoverished American children rely on. The reality of an education system without a Department of Education to disperse funds doesn't just look like poor educational outcomes. It looks like hunger and sickness and books so old that they are illegible. And it looks like a growing divide between the children of the wealthy and the children of hard-working, tax-paying Americans that have relied on the now broken promise that the government is supposed to make life better. Is this what we want? Do we not want better for our children? Because I know I do. Last time I checked, no one was saying the schools are too funded, they're too good. This administration may claim that they have devised some flawless plan to create a renewed image of public education, and honestly, the image of I have no clue because we haven't seen it. Meanwhile, your children, the future of America, are caught in the crossfires. As a student, I find it selfish, unintelligent, and abhorrent. I implore all of us today in this room to think of the children and young Americans who will be impacted by this action. Chances are, it isn't you, it isn't me, it isn't any of us here. It is the rural and underprivileged and middle-class students who benefit from quality public education the most because it gives them a chance to succeed, a chance to dream. This action leads the children of America down a dark, dangerous, and destructive pathway that isn't of their own design. As a student and as a human, I will not stand for it. And I encourage all of us here today to stand in strong opposition of it.
Thank you, Eliza, and thank you to all our speakers. I think we have time for a couple questions for those who have them. We can also stick around after and do individual interviews if that's better. Any questions? All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.